Welcome back to Tobago Thursdays on the Now Morning Show. Our next conversation, we're speaking about managing exam anxiety. And joining us is Rhonda Thompson-Benjamin, a counselling psychologist at Equilibrium Counselling Services. Good morning, Rhonda, and welcome.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me this morning.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you with us on the show. Thank you so much for joining us. And this is such a critical conversation because, we were speaking very briefly off air about the fact that exam anxiety, I referenced that, it's not just for those university students. Everybody who's taking exams gets a bit of anxiety. You spoke about the fact that even, when it comes to interview process and so much more, there are all these different things that take place that can contribute to that. But we're going to break it down with exam anxiety this morning and hopefully be able to take away some things from this that we can apply to our lives. So let's speak about exam anxiety. Can you break it down for us?
Sure. Exam anxiety is really a form of performance anxiety when a person experiences fear, worry, and even physical sensations and symptoms before the exam. So it goes beyond the typical nervousness that we all experience, well, most of us experience, and it could really affect concentration, memory, and indeed performance. So it's something that we have to pay critical attention to, and I'm happy that we are having this discussion, especially as we enter Mental Health Awareness Month.
Yeah, definitely an important conversation to have. One of the things that you just spoke about, Rhonda, was symptoms. And these symptoms, I know they can manifest in different forms or fashions. Can you walk us through those and what we should look out for?
Yes. So again, normal stress as it relates to exam could really be motivating. Sometimes we feel when we are stressed, it's a problem. However, stress helps us to really accomplish our goals. If we are not stressed in the morning to go to work, a little stressed, we may lie down all day, we may not get things done. So normal stress is okay. But on the other hand, when we look at performance anxiety, this is when there is a heightened level of panic. Persons could blank out. You can't remember anything that you would have studied. Even the physical symptoms, some persons experience nausea, vomiting, rapid heartbeat. All of these things are key elements that we have to look at in terms of performance anxiety. Many persons may sit in the exam, they may be unable to complete that exam or even start. You can't even see the paper. So those are some symptoms of exam anxiety.
So you say this with such ease. Is this something that we should possibly consider as normal? And how can we differentiate between what's going to be that normal stress and problematic anxiety?
Yeah, I think the key difference is that normal stress, it really enhances performance. But when we look at exam anxiety, it impairs performance. So that is the difference there. So yes, we may feel, flutters in the stomach. We may feel that level of anxiety anytime we are entering into a new space. The fear of the unknown, which is natural. However, when it prevents us from, daily functioning and achieving our goals, that is when we have to pay critical attention to it.
And in these circumstances, essentially, what do we do? Because you're referencing circumstances many of us have lived through. You go into the exam room, you blank out. It definitely is going to possibly send you into even more panic, depending on what the exam may or may not be, what the outcome is going to be. So how do we start to manage these effectively so we can basically be preventative?
Yeah, I think one of the key things is that we develop an effective study plan and avoid last minute cramping. Cramming, sorry. So many times we wait until the day before the exam to just rush everything into one study um minute or hour. Let's be realistic. We cannot cover an entire semester in one day. That causes the anxiety. So having a study plan can help us to reduce that level of anxiety. Using relaxation techniques, because many times we go into panic and our body is not processing what is happening effectively. So what we need to do is develop that relaxation response. So we take deep breaths. So we breathe in for 4. We hold that breath for 4 and we breathe out for 4. And that really helps the body to calm down, to lower the heart rate, and also positive self-talk. I can do this. I've done exams before. If this is not your first time, to help you to walk through these situations. Another important thing that we need to think about is our physical health. We need to get adequate rest. It really helps us to the information to be stored in our minds. If we are not resting, many times we forget what we've studied. So nutrition and exercise also places an important role in terms of exam anxiety. Also reframing our negative thoughts. You may think, I can't do this. This is going to be so hard. And sometimes it is not that difficult. Many times we can manage it, but if we have these thoughts, of course, those feelings will follow and those behaviors, those physical sensations will follow. So remind yourself, once you've been diligent, you will be able to pass those exams. So those things are helpful. Also, let me add, going to the exam site on time. So you don't want to be rushing before the exam. If you could go an hour before, great. You look inside, you become acquainted with the environment, you walk up and down, and eventually you would become.
Rhonda, I feel like you're not just giving us tips to deal with exam anxiety, but also general tips for life as well. Something as simple as saying, listen, you cannot cram an entire semester into one night before the exam, which, trust and believe, I'm sure many of us, myself included, have tried to do that in just probably not the best times, to say the least. But one of the things that also speaks to is the way that our brain works, and our brain wants to keep us comfortable. And we see that as something that is the norm throughout with absolutely everybody. And the fact that everybody, many of us rather, suffer from exam anxiety means that there's a running trend. Do you think that perhaps maybe there are some cultural or systemic factors in our education system that can make exam anxiety worse?
Yeah, I think there is, because many times we put the emphasis on, passing with 100% or getting that A, when many times we do not place that focus on effort. Even in our family unit, SEA, students just completed the SEA exam. And many times the focus is not on, you did a good job, you studied. And even after the results comes out, many parents are disappointed when the main emphasis should be on the effort that is placed into studying, developing those habits. Because many times when students complete the SEA exam and they go to Form 1, they are already burnt out. Yeah, so there are some cultural factors that we have to really consider. Then there is this thought that you have to do well to make the family proud, which is great in and of itself. However, when that thought, it is not delivered in the right way, it could really add to that exam anxiety. And when persons feel as though they may not have been good in a particular exam, it creates a heightened level of anxiety at the next exam, and then it continues. And of course, it could lead to a number of mental health challenges. So we need to consider developing approaches that may help students to pass. So maybe it may not only be a written exam, we may consider other modes of testing whether or not students would have gained the information and they are able to apply it to various situations.
So, Rhonda, as you're speaking there, of course, we're hearing about possible recommendations for systemic structure, but also coming out of this is how it's managed by students, but by parents. So let's start with the parents. What advice do you have for parents who have to somehow find that balance and perhaps unlearn what they experienced growing up to ensure that their children don't suffer from this intense exam anxiety?
Yeah, I think for parents, it's important to create that supportive environment, low pressure environment, And I was sharing with some persons recently for my SE exam, my parents just dropped me off like it's another day. And when the other students were panicking, I was just very calm because I'm thinking this is just another exam, and I was able to do my best. And sometimes, yes, it's good to support, it's good to be there. But when students perceive that this is something that is life or death, it could create some level of anxiety. So be supportive, encourage, affirm, but if you should know your child and you know what they would appreciate. So if they value your presence, that's good. But if they prefer that you not be there physically, and that could create some level of anxiety, we need to look out for that. Encourage effort over perfection, celebrate small wins. So even when results come out, they did excellent in creative writing, but they struggle a little in math. You could say, okay, I thought you would have done better. But I'm happy that you did very well in creative writing. And even for young adults, they need the support of their families. So just encouraging they fail a course, it is not the end of the world. How can we problem solve? How can we fix this? How can we get another strategy so that you are calm when you are going into exam? How can you study better? How can we assist you? And just teaching them coping skills, modeling the behavior.
And
Parents need to model the behavior. Yes, go
And
ahead.
as you mentioned that, Rhonda, coping skills and behavior, we need some practical tips for the children in our lives when it comes to be able to manage that anxiety.
Yeah. Well, first of all, coping tips is developed over time. So we are not waiting until the exam comes to help our children to get through it. We have to cope through life, and we'll be faced with many difficult situations. So teaching our children coping, especially as they from toddler stage coming up, they need to be able to know how to de-escalate situations. So taking a deep breath, talking to those who is very supportive, are very supportive of you, finding those adults in the space to affirm you. Those are some practical things that students can do. So I would have mentioned the breathing exercise before. Getting to class early, helping them to establish that study plan so they know, okay, this is something that is coming up, and being able to have timelines and effective time management skills is a critical element in terms of managing anxiety.
Yeah, definitely. Rhonda, thank you so much for joining us this morning. It's been an absolute pleasure. Hoping we can have you on again soon to continue this conversation, because there's definitely a lot that we all need to learn and unlearn. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, and same to you.
Rhonda Thompson-Benjamin with us this morning, speaking about exam anxiety and sharing some breathing tips that definitely can work for any and everybody when it comes to just allaying some of that racing fight or flight syndrome, I guess.
And some of it is for exams, but it could be for any everyday stress as well. Especially as my daughter told me the other day that she wants to be an adult because we don't have to go to school. I'm like, girl.
Who's going to tell her? Who's going to tell her? As much as though the focus was on exams,
I told her.
As much as you guys, the conversation was focusing on prep for exam, though, I did feel a little bad because she starts talking about, planning ahead and studying and not cramming, and I'm like, ooh, where were you? Where were you? Not the cramming part, but I've literally never. You know how some people used to get up early in the morning, like 2 o'clock, their parents would wake them up and sit with them and they'd study and stuff?
Yeah. Oh.
I did that just the other day when I was doing ACAM.
Yeah.
That's 2 o'clock in the morning before I come to work here.
Never in my life have I ever had
Look
a
at
study
you,
schedule.
God's favorite. How does
Amen
it
to
feel?
that as well.
No, but generally the dynamic of having that schedule and actually doing it, I've never had. What I used to do was I was highly participant in my class. Obviously, I'm very much that girl. And then post lessons and those sorts of things. That's what helped me. So the methods may have changed over the years. But I immediately thought, wow, I've never never really put in that sort of effort, and so I could understand why children may feel a little stressed. The intensity she was talking about, where the parents making you feel like, oh my God, this is the biggest thing in their life. Certain things identified, and I'm like, oh, that's what happened.
Yeah. But I think that what you spoke of there is very important as well, that paying attention in class, in the moment. It definitely helps. And I would say to all students, like, that is the key. Revision and stuff is nice, right? And that will definitely be icing on the cake.
Get it right.
Getting it the first time, paying attention to the details, doing it when you need to do it one time, that makes a significant difference in making you feel more comfortable when that exam comes around as well, because you
teachers,
understand
we appreciate you. Thank you for the support, the patience, and the methods that you kind of tweaked for each child, and as much as you could with your classes of 40 and 30 students. We really appreciate you.
Yeah, definitely. Kudos to all of you.
The lessons teachers too, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, big up the lessons teachers, for sure. My CXC lessons teacher for maths, thanks. I appreciate you. That is for sure.
Yeah, no, my bio teacher. Good times. We can do this all morning long. I'm so sorry. Good morning, sir.
All right, let's take a quick break, and we'll be back right here on the Now Morning Show.
As I lay in my bed with my head to the ceiling.